The Film Basement is filmed in sunny West Hartford, Connecticut, in front of a live studio audience.
Welcome to the FilmMaker's Basement, where the beer is as lukewarm as our takes. I'm Brandon Gasparino.
I'm Andrew Poulin.
And we're going to be walking you through some of the movies we saw this week, in addition to some fun games and a little bit of news here and there. The movie I went and saw this week was Jungle Cruise. And now I need to preface this before I say anything else. And that is, so originally I was going to go see Candyman, because that's a film that's more up in my alley. It's got like that thinky horror feel to it, which I love. Unfortunately, I also spooked myself out a little bit too much watching the trailers. And I couldn't find a friend to see it, and like before I went and saw the movie, so I ended up switching the movie I was going to see, and instead I saw Jungle Cruise, inspired by the famous Disneyland theme park ride, Disney's Jungle Cruise, and It Feels It, is an adventure-filled rollicking thrill ride down the Amazon with wisecracking skipper Frank Wolf and intrepid researcher Dr. Lily Houghton. Lily travels from London, England to the Amazon jungle and enlists Frank's questionable services to guide her down the river on L'Aquila, his ramshackle but charming boat. Lily is determined to uncover an ancient tree with unparalleled healing abilities, possessing the power to change the future of medicine. Thrust on this epic quest together, the unlikely duo encounters innumerable dangers and supernatural forces, all lurking in the deceptive beauty of the lush rainforest. So I have one qualm with that description first up, and this is something I noticed throughout all the descriptions. There are three main characters in this movie. Mm-hmm. Lily, played by Emily Blunt, has a gay brother who is very prominently in the movie. And in all the descriptions I looked through and found, none of them mentioned him, which I thought was really weird. So I don't know what that says about like AMC, IMDb, all these places, but I thought that was just a little bit weird. But besides that, I will say that, like it mentioned in the beginning, it definitely feels inspired by the Disneyland ride. Mm-hmm. It felt like a vehicle for Disney to like, how do I put this? It felt like this movie feels like it was made for people who wanted to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson lead an amusement park ride, if that makes sense. Because he is definitely the best part of this movie, and he's the most fun I had in this movie. He is the wisecracking riverboat pilot. And I'll say the best part of that movie, for me at least, was the opening sequence when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is taking down a bunch of like 1900s English folk down a river. He's like setting off traps for them. He's like having natives come up and like shoot darts at them. Like he has this whole little setup, and the entire time he's cracking puns constantly. Like I swear there are at least in a 3-minute span, there are like 15 different puns that he makes, which incredible. I love it. That is exactly what I was looking for. Besides that, I think it's lacking a bit in the substance department. Mm-hmm. Another good analog for this film is there's a scene where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt and her brother are on a boat, on a steam engine wooden boat, jumping a building as a torpedo goes underneath them, being chased by World War I Germans.
It sounds very Fast and the Furious.
It felt very Fast and the Furious. I was sitting there like, what is happening right now? This is not what I signed up for. And that's the other kind of problem I have with this movie. The movie's 2 hours long, and I think they could have cut a solid 30 minutes out of that movie if they had just gotten rid of the World War I Germans entirely. Like, I do not know why they were in that movie at all, because they don't really further the plot all that much. They're not like particularly interesting, and they don't really have an impact, like a massive impact on the overall story. If they had been removed, I would not have been able to tell you they were in the movie in the first place. Like, and because of that, we lose out on much more interesting villains. And this will be minor spoilers for Jungle Cruise if you do care to see it. So one of the other group of villains are a group of ancient conquistadors that were cursed to live close to the Amazon River. They cannot they cannot leave the site of the Amazon River, or else they will be literally pulled back into it. And they're also all like 400 plus years old. They're essentially immortals. and they're all kind of like flavored after different sections of the jungle. Like one of them is a man made out of snakes, another one's a man made out of bees, another one's like a mud man. And it sounds ridiculous. They are also another really good part of that movie. Like they are a very entertaining and interesting group of villains that are connected back to the main story in a great way.
Mhm.
And they're hinted at throughout the entirety of the story because they don't show up in the beginning. They're introduced later on after Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson reveals that he is one of these conquistadors that was cursed. Unlike them, however, he was able to overcome his curse in a weird way. Regardless, it was a plotline that I did not expect. They hinted at it a little bit in the beginning. Incredibly fascinating, and I love it. But it is lost in order to bring these Germans into it. They're not given as much screen time as a result, which I think is a disservice to it. Because I think the movie would have been a lot better had they been the main focus. Because they're all interesting, and I want to know more about their stories and like how they ended up like this. So that's a big thing for me, is that I'm not a fan of the Germans, but I love the other villains. They're fantastic. As far as the other characters are concerned, Emily Blunt's character is kind of boring. Like she isn't, she wasn't bad, but like I wasn't really there for her. It was like Dwayne kind of stole the show on that one. Additionally, they also try to set up like this weird romance between her and Dwayne, but like I say weird because it's incredibly toxic. Like Dwayne is constantly lying to her about things as he's like making all these wisecracking jokes, trying to steal her stuff, like all that kind of thing. And she just forgives him at random moments. It's like we go from one scene where he's like lied about his entire backstory and the reason for him being there, and in the next scene they're like on the verge of making out. I'm just like, what did I miss?
It's very one extreme to the other, isn't
yeah,
it?
like literally there's one scene where Dwayne like fakes his death to a degree, and then he shows up immediately later, and Emily Blunt's like, what the hell, dude? Oh, by the way, can we like, you're like my thing now, like can we just go into this? And I'm like, what happened? So I found that to be a bit weird. The third character, the gay brother, which I really should have remembered his name, but I can't. He isn't anyone I knew, at least. He's all right. He's a bit annoying in the beginning. They really go into like this prissy gay character as like his whole archetype to start off with, but he does evolve later on and become a much more interesting guy, which I enjoyed. Which it was nice to see that, like some evolution to that. Let's see. So overall, what I would say is that the movie feels kind of predictable. So you're not going to get anything new from this movie. It's very like that action adventure focused, like very charismatic lead from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You'll get a couple of good puns here and there, some decent action scenes, but overall it's like kind of a meh experience. It really does feel like they turned an amusement park ride into a movie. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think it does a service to the movie either. So
I've never ridden the ride because I've never been to Disneyland.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, like, if, because like obviously I've I've ridden Pirates of the Caribbean. And obviously that's in Disney World and Disneyland, but there was elements of, obviously they're not going to just take a ride from Disney and make it into a movie. That's kind of impossible. You have to have some sort of plot. So they took elements from the movie and put it, or the ride, and put it into the movie. So was there like, I don't know, do you know anything about the ride, the Jungle Cruise ride?
So I did go to that. I mean, I have ridden that before when I was a kid. I will say they pay a nice homage to it in the beginning when Dwayne is initially leading that first like cruise. A lot of the props on the side are like things you would have seen on that ride. Like they're, again, preface this by saying they're in the Amazon forest. So like Dwayne's like driving the boat along. All of a sudden this fake hippo pops up and Dwayne like bats it back with a spear. He points up in the tree and they're like toucans flying around. So like they pay a nice homage to it in the beginning. I will say they did have to give it more of a plot because the ride itself doesn't really have one.
Right.
And that plot is, again, Emily Blunt's character is going into the Amazon. She's trying to find this magical flower that essentially cures like all wounds, all ailments, anything like that. And they really focus on that being like, it's in the middle of the Amazon rainforest somewhere. One of these rivers leads to it. You got to figure out which one that is. So it's there to a degree. The aesthetic is definitely there. Like it's a jungle cruise. Like it's definitely feels that way. But outside of that, like it feels like they really had to kind of reach to find the story of this and what it was going to be.
How did you like it? Would you recommend the whole movie?
I would say if you have young kids, they would probably like this a lot. Again, Dwayne's very good in this movie. Like I'm the kind of person who thinks that whenever he's on screen, he's not really acting, he's being himself, if that makes sense. But this is like one of the perfect roles for him. Like him being like this wisecracking tour guide, excellent. I loved that. Besides that, I will admit I was kind of bored during a lot of the plot of the movie. Again, like Emily Blunt's romance with him isn't exactly that interesting. Like their end objective isn't like the most, again, another not really interesting plot point. Like as we got to the end of the movie, I didn't really care as much about that. The conquistadors that are hunting down Dwayne, excellent. Love them. Great plot point. So if you're going into this movie expecting it to be a good like blockbuster action adventure, it's not entirely that. But if you want some good puns here and there and some solid action scenes, I'd recommend it.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Cool. So what did you go see this week?
So I kind of did the same thing that you did this week, because I was originally going to go, like, I kind of wanted to do this segment as like the newer movies that have come out. So I was going to go see that Card Counter movie with Oscar Isaac. But it wasn't playing at any theater near me. So like I couldn't, like, I was like, well, I mean, I have to have something for the program, and I've already seen Shang-Chi. I wasn't going to pay to go see Malignant because it's on HBO Max. So like if I'm gonna watch Malignant, I'm gonna watch it at home. But I signed up for AMC Stubs, and I was like, kind of want to use that today because I just got it today. So kind of want to go do that. So I went and saw a movie that I hadn't gone seen yet, which came out a little while ago, which is Free Guy, which is about a bank teller who discovers that he's a background character in an open world video game, and he decides to become the hero of his own story, one that he rewrites himself. Now, in a world where there are no limits, he's determined to be the guy who saves his world his way before it's too late. And I went into the movie knowing that it was a video game type of movie. There was, because you watch the trailers, it's based in this video game world, and you know that Guy, who is the main character, his name is Guy. He is a non-playable character in this video game who discovers that he is in a video game. And I was like, well, how are they going to work this around? Because it's kind of interesting. And the way that they kind of told that story of how he became self-aware is really good. And it reminds you a lot of those artificial intelligence movies like Her, and I can't even think of it. The one that came to mind was Her with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, where he's falling in love with his phone. And the movie itself was really good. It was like, it built up. It had its moment where it built up, and then it came down. The character came down a little bit, and then you worked up to the your typical character story arc, act 1, act 2, act 3. Act 1, he finds out what he's doing, he goes on his mission. Act 2, he figures out that nothing in his world matters anymore, he gets kicked in the dirt. And then act 3 is the crescendo of the movie where he becomes the hero. So it had that dynamic to it, which is really good. I like that in a movie. It makes it a little predictable. It makes it predictable and stuff like that. But in the way that they told the story, I was like, oh, that it kind of blew me away. I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming at all, which was really interesting. And the game itself that they were going for was a very Grand Theft Auto type of world. And did you go and see this yet when it first came out?
I have not, but I've been interested in because of the Grand Theft Auto comparison, because I know how people play in that game and how they treat the NPCs.
It's a very Grand Theft Auto type of style gameplay where the NPCs of this world are, it's based around these NPCs, and the sunglass people, which is what they call the players, are these basically they think that they're heroes, like they're superheroes, these sunglass people, but in reality they're all a bunch of like, because obviously it's people playing online, and people playing online can be big, like, so like, yeah, so like they're going and robbing banks, they're throwing shopkeepers out their glass windows and glass doors, they're picking up like prostitutes and stuff. It's wild. And then he somehow gets a hold of these glasses or sunglasses, and he puts them on, and he can see the world. And then he starts to become self-aware and self-learning and all this stuff. And it's a wild ride. It's pretty good. It has a lot of references in it to different video games. If you're into video games, it has a lot of different references to video games. It has a lot of references to different pop culture, especially at the end during the final battle. The main antagonist of the movie is the actual creator of the game. And obviously your protagonists are Ryan Reynolds' character Guy, and you also have a person who is Guy's love interest, who is an actual player in the game, which is why it reminded me of her a lot, because this girl is playing the video game, and this AI becomes self-aware and starts to fall in love with this girl. And it was, by the end of it, I was like pleasantly surprised. I was going into it expecting it to be funny, expecting it to be good, and I was not let down like with some other movies that I've seen recently. So definitely. Go ahead.
Oh no, finish up.
Oh, I definitely recommend seeing it if you haven't yet.
Yeah, so I'm actually a little bit curious when you mentioned the developer was in the game. I was actually wondering if there were any scenes, because a lot of these online games have like big development teams, make sure everything's running smoothly and there's no like bugs. Like for instance, one of the NPCs becoming sentient. Yeah. And again, you mentioned a little bit of that, like with being like the creator of the games in the game itself. Are there any scenes where we like cut to Free Guy HQ and you just see like a bunch of people running around like, yeah, what's this NPC doing? Why is he active?
Without giving too much of the story away for spoiling the plot points and everything of like the second act, the CEO of the development company of the game, which is played by Taika Waititi, or however you pronounce that, super hilarious. It's the first time I've actually seen him play a villain in a movie, but he was super funny. He plays himself. He's not animated or anything, which was also different because he's been animated in the last few things that he's been in. So he runs this company called Tsunami Studios, who is the developer of this game called Free City. And that's the name of the game. And his whole thing is he's trying to make this game sell really well so that they can make the sequel, Free City 2. And eventually, Free City 2 is not an add-on to Free City 1. So once Free City 2 releases to PC and people buy it, Free City 1 will get shut down. So Ryan Reynolds' character Guy, he finds out about this through his love interest character, who for some reason her name escapes me. Her online character named was Molotov Girl, but her real name escapes me, and I can't remember who it is. But they find out that their game is going to be shut down and that their world is going to be destroyed and that they'll be deleted.
It says Jodie Comer is the... I don't know her at all, but
that's probably the actress.
Yeah,
that plays her. So he basically bands all these NPCs together to try to stop the game from being deleted by this antagonist developer. And yeah, they do go to like Tsunami Studios, and like because one of the main characters who is he's God, I can't remember his name either. He plays Steve in Stranger Things.
Yes.
He plays one of the other protagonists in the real world, and he is a complaints person for Free City, but he's like this super intelligent developer. Like he has built his own game before, and like Taika Waititi's character wants to move him up to like development and production, and he's like, "Oh, I'm fine where I'm at." So, and so he actually helps them as well go into the game, and he writes some code to help them out, like while they're trying to save their world. And it's a really good, it's a really good, fun kind of movie.
As someone who who saw the trailer for this movie and thought this could either be a really interesting concept or really horrible, I am so happy to hear that it's actually like a solid movie, because
it's really
right
good.
Up my alley.
Mm-hmm. It's very good. I do recommend it, because I went into it hoping I wasn't going to get let down, and I wasn't. So
excellent. Well, I'm adding that onto my watch list. Maybe next week when I use my AMC stubs, I'll throw that in and
I gotta figure out mine. My AMC stubs wasn't working, so I gotta figure it out.
Mine was, I was able to get mine working without any problem. So
it won't let me log back into it, so I gotta figure that out.
That's so weird.
It let me do it this last week. It just I went to log in just now and it won't let me log in. Weird.
I don't know. AMC subs can be a little bit weird sometimes. And speaking of things that are a little bit weird, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Pilot Wings. Roll the trailer, Brandon, that you haven't made yet. So, Poulin, you're familiar with this game, but for those who haven't played before, for Pilot Wings, I present Poulin with 3 show log lines, which are essentially brief descriptions of what these shows are about. Now, Poulin has to guess whether I made these up or whether they're real. 2 of them are real. 1 of them is something I made up. So we shall see if Poulin can test his wills and figure out which one's the fake one. To start off, when an undercover Los Angeles cop finds himself left for dead by his fellow officers, nothing will stop him from getting his revenge, even if it means teaming up with the drug lord he was trying to bust. Number 1. Number 2. When a former high-ranking NYPD officer becomes the first female chief of the police for Los Angeles, she uses her unflinching honesty and hardball tactics to navigate the social, political, and national security issues that converge with enforcing the law. And number 3. Follows the dedicated, chaotic, hopeful, and sometimes absurd lives of the judges, assistant district attorneys, and public defenders as they work with bailiffs, clerks, cops, and jurors to bring justice to the people of Los Angeles. And unlike last week, I did research to make sure if these shows got made or not. So we will know by the end of this.
All right. So obviously they have an underlying theme, which they're all about Los Angeles. Oh, actually, no, you got one in there that's NYPD. Oh, no, they're all Los Angeles.
They're all Los Angeles themed.
They're all Los Angeles Police Department themed.
I'm trying to be tricky.
So were they all made... are they all like kind of recent shows, or are they all...
These were all from the 2019 pilot season. Hopefully next week I'll be pulling from a different season, but
okay,
these were all 2019.
All from 2019 fall.
Yes.
Collection. Okay. So an undercover Los Angeles cop finds himself left for dead by his fellow officers. Nothing will stop him from getting his revenge, even if it means teaming up with the drug lord he's trying to bust. That seems a little kind of far-fetched. I mean, it seems like it could be a good show, but it seems, I don't know, it kind of seems cheesy. When a former high-ranking NYPD officer becomes first female chief of police in Los Angeles, use their unflinching honesty and hardball tactics. See, that is more of like a show that I could see that actually happens, especially in this day and age. That people love to see a woman in charge take on the hardball tactics of the LAPD. So I'm going to say that B is a show. And that means that leaves me with 2. So and then I have C, which follows the dedicated, chaotic, hopeful, and sometimes absurd lives of the judges, assistant district attorneys, and public defenders as they work with bailiffs, clerks, cops, and jurors to bring justice to people out Los Angeles. So that one feels like Law and Order, like for, because it deals with everybody. You got cops, you got judges, you got DAs, and all that stuff. So I just can't think of a show that was like Law and Order, but for LA. Because I know Law and Order has a bunch of spinoffs, but they're all based in New York. The the only thing I can think of with that one is it would be like NCIS Los Angeles or something. So I'm gonna stick with that one, and I'm gonna say A, which is the undercover Los Angeles cop finds himself left for dead. That, yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. I'm going with my gut. I'm saying that one's the fake one.
Okay, so you're locking in letter A.
Letter A. Yeah, I'm locking that one in.
Okay. You are correct. That was the fake one.
All right, let's go.
I thought Los Angeles would throw you off more. I thought it would.
Well, they're all Los Angeles. They're all based in Los Angeles.
Like, oh, if I make them all in Los Angeles, there's no way he'll be able to get this. They're all cop dramas from Los Angeles.
Because that one just felt a little too like a sitcom spinoff.
That's fair. I hammed it up a little too much. I was thinking my inspiration for that one was did you ever see? It was that one that was on Netflix. It's about the cop who has the imaginary friend that's his like daughter's imaginary friend, and they're going off together to like try and save his daughter.
Oh, is it the Chris Maloney show?
Yeah, I think so. I was trying to kind of base it on that. I can't remember what it's called.
Like Sparkles or something.
Yeah.
That was a sci-fi show.
Yes, that's what.
Yeah.
I know it from Netflix, but that was what I was trying to base it on, was something like that. And I was like, oh, maybe this could be kind of real. It's like, no. Okay, so for the second one, the one about the NYPD officer, that one was called Tommy. It only got one season by the looks of things.
I've never heard of it.
That's probably why, because it just wasn't popular. And the second one, which I would never have guessed would be as popular as is called All Rise.
I see. I have heard of that.
And that one, I was just like, that's just a silly name for me, at least. All Rise is just kind of silly. But that one actually ended up getting 2 seasons, which is
So I did hear of that. I do know of that one. That one is a CBS drama.
Okay.
And then Tommy is CBS. Actually, they're both CBS, but
I pulled them both.
Tommy only got 1 season, 12 episodes. So, and then it got canceled. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's it's unfortunate, but not all these shows make it. That's just how it is. Okay, well, thank you all for participating in that round of Pilot Wings. Hopefully I actually did end up creating that asset, and I just didn't, forget to do it. And now that we've gotten that done, let's move on to our outro. Some new movies that are coming out this week, and I'm looking at IMDb right now.
Yeah, I had it pulled up already. And you could say that. So I looked at IMDb for like the next 3 weeks. There's only one movie that interests me in the next 3 weeks.
What's coming out in the next?
We'll stick, if we're doing this weekly, we'll just stick with this week.
Yeah.
The only thing that I see on here that actually has me semi-interested, there's a couple. I mean, there's one that's like, that's probably not going to be very good. But the one that's caught my eye that actually also has a bad Metacritic score is Cry Macho, which is Clint Eastwood directed, Clint Eastwood stars as a one-time rodeo star and washed-up horse breeder who takes a job to bring a man's young son home and away from his alcoholic mom. On their journey, the horseman finds redemption through teaching the boy what it means to be a good man. And I mean, Clint Eastwood always kind of has like good movies. Like, I mean, some of them recently have kind of been off the rails, but he's getting older. So like, maybe this will be good. Maybe I'll go see it. Who knows? I got to figure out my AMC app first. And then the only other one that I saw on here that looked interesting-ish is Cop Shop. Which stars Frank Grillo and Gerard Butler. It says on the run from a lethal assassin, a wily con artist devises a scheme to hide out inside a small town police station. But when the hitman turns up at the precinct, an unsuspecting rookie cop finds herself caught in the crosshairs. So
sounds all right.
I mean, that also doesn't have a great Metacritic score at the moment. So
it doesn't
not really much on here that has a good Metacritic score right now.
This just doesn't seem like a great week for movies.
It's not a good week, and next week's not any better.
No,
Like,
there's just not.
so,
There's just not much. Like, there's a movie at the next week list that I was looking at that like I'm kind of into, but I'll save that for talking about next week.
mhm.
But yeah, the rest of these are just kind of like none of them seem that interesting. There's one. I guess there's one. Prisoners of Ghostland. Notorious criminal must break an evil curse in order to rescue an abducted girl who's mysteriously disappeared. Like,
I
seems
mean,
like it could be kind of schlocky.
it's got Nick Cage in it, and like,
I didn't see that. This movie got 1,000 times better.
So like, I mean, like, what's he done recently?
He did
like,
Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah, and I don't have any interest to see that. Like,
that
I don't
movie
play.
is fantastic.
I don't play Five Nights at Freddy's for a reason.
Oh no, it's nothing like Five Nights at Freddy's. That's the best.
Well, it's
part.
the same concept as Five Nights at Freddy's. It's murderous animatronic characters.
But imagine if the main character could fight back.
Oh, right. Yeah,
pinball.
That's the only thing that's different is the main character actually fights back, which is,
Yeah. And
I
it's
watched
Nick Cage.
I watched the Everything Wrong With on YouTube for it. Shout out to CinemaSins. But no.
Okay. Here's what. Okay, I'm gonna go off top. First off, I didn't even notice that Nick Cage was in there. Again, I immediately want to see this movie because it sounds fantastic.
Know what you're talking about next week.
Either that or Candyman, one of the two. We'll see if I can get through Candyman. But
they're both horror movies, so
yes, this one looks worse, so I can get through that. What I will say about Willy's Wonderland, there's a good movie in there. If they could cut out all the parts, so the plot is essentially this guy is supposed to watch over a Five Nights at Freddy's style restaurant for a night, fighting off animatronics and whatnot. There's this like beat plot about these teens that break in and they all get murdered by the robots. If you cut out like the 30 to 40 minutes that is those teens, you have the perfect movie, which is Nick Cage occasionally punching a robot and getting oil all over himself, and then going into a corner for 5 minutes and playing pinball like Nick Cage would, which is like with exaggerated facial expressions, drinking grape soda.
I'm telling you, I saw the Everything Wrong With, which is basically just a synopsis of the movie and ripping it to pieces and giving it sins. So I know all about the movie and I've seen all the major plot points. But I'm good. Like I'm good. Like
I'm just saying, it's
don't do demons. There's things in movies that I don't do. I don't do ghosts. I don't do demons, and I don't do anything paranormal because I have kind of dealt with that in the real world, and I don't want to upset anybody.
That's true. You don't want to bring any bad juju onto you.
No.
Luckily,
the house I live on was not built on a cemetery like my last house was. So
I didn't think that actually happens.
Yeah, they moved the headstones. I'm pretty confident they didn't move the bodies.
That's the worst. Oh my gosh, this shouldn't be.
That's the Air Force for you.
Oh, that's terrifying. All right, well, hopefully I get to see the Nicolas Cage horror movie because that makes my week that he's in. Even though he does a movie every other month, like
that's what I mean. Like, if you just watch the SNL skits of Andy Samberg doing Nicolas Cage impressions, you'll understand that Nicolas Cage will do anything in any movie as long as he's getting fed, like essentially.
I will admit, he actually did have an actually solid movie come out recently that I've heard about, but I haven't seen yet. It's called Pig. Essentially, it's Nick Cage as a truffle farmer. His truffle pig gets stolen, which truffle pigs are used to find the truffles.
Yes.
And he has to go on this journey to get his pig back. It sounds jokey. It's apparently nothing like that at all. And it's like a punch to the gut.
Knock off John Wick or something.
Not even close.
With a pig.
That's what I thought it was. It's nothing like that. It's this kind of sad older dude.
Oh,
Nick Cage going around and like trying to get his pig back. And apparently in his past, he was like a mob boss. So that's how he's able to like get away with talking to like a bunch of people he should not be talking to. But it's kind of solemn and kind of a meditation on like life and your expectations for how you expect things to turn out and what we have to live for and all that. And apparently it's good, which is like insane to me.
I mean, it's got a 7 out of 10. So on IMDb.
I heard nothing but good things. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have to check it out myself and see if it is actually what they were saying it was. But
I mean, it's rated R for some violence and language. So it's a thriller, it looks like. So
yeah, but he has done some good stuff, not a lot, some good stuff recently.
Oh my god.
And on that wonderful note, we're gonna wrap this bad boy up. Thank you for watching the Filmmaker's Basement. My name is Brandon Gasparino.
And I'm Andrew Poulin.
And we're so happy that you stopped by and heard us rant about Nick Cage for about 5 minutes. Have a good one, everyone.